Welcome to the Rewired Recruiter. My name is James O'Brien, and I'm joined today by two special guests, David Perry of Perry Martell International and Plamen Ivanoff of iIntro. Now, over the course of this session, I'm sure that you'll find these two entrepreneurs to be both insightful about their experiences in our industry, the recruitment industry, but perhaps more importantly, I hope you'll find the time that we spend together to be both useful and enjoyable. So to introduce David, let me just share a little bit about him. So David, don't blush on this piece, yeah? So David is the Managing Director of Perry Martell International, which was a business founded nearly 33 years ago in 1988, which David founded with his partner, Anita Martell, who I assume is your wife, David. But,
yes, as chief CEO.
Yeah, great, absolutely. And based in Canada, in Ottawa, I believe.
Yeah.
I think. Delivered nearly 1,500 recruitment campaigns with salaries approaching $400 million, which is a wow from our point of view, David. That's a lot of money. But it is a lot of years, isn't it? So we'll reflect on that. But as I hope you discover, David has a lot to offer, not only for his career in recruitment, but he is actually, of course, a fantastic recruiter. But I think you'll also find that he's a thoroughly good man in terms of and a very good human being, as I think some of the stories I hope we'll tease out of David will testify to that. He's been featured in and on many of many top media platforms. He offers guidance as a life coach. He's a motivational speaker. And he's authored several books, most notably, Executive Recruiting for Dummies and also Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters. So David, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I'm looking forward to just exploring a little bit about executive recruiting for dummies, because it's probably quite apt for me in this audience. Now, Plamen is the co-founder of iIntro, which supports recruitment firms in their transition from delivering transactional contingent recruitment services through to a more consultative retained market. Now, over the past 10 years, Plamen and the iIntro team have delivered and worked with over 1,000 recruiters worldwide, delivering up to £200 million worth of retained recruitment fee income. So indeed, with you two guys, we're in very illustrious company today. Now, prior to Plamen's foray, just saying a little bit about him as well, prior to him actually getting into the recruitment sphere, Plamen was a property investor, partner in a property firm, financial services, and something we might also touch on later. Plamen started out his career, part of his career in hotel management. So that'll be fun to talk with you about that one as well. So hopefully we'll share some experiences. So welcome, Plamen, as well.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with an easy question for you then. How do you two know each other?
We spoke with David a couple of years ago, and we discussed the concept of iIntro. I think David is an avid supporter of consultative recruitment, and possibly we've got certain synergies that brought us together. I've actually followed David directly or indirectly because I admire your work, David, and obviously I've listened to podcasts that you broadcasted before, etc. And I'm always intrigued to speak to someone that has done such tremendous things in recruitment, i.e., if you talk about billing, to come up with such a large $400 million of salaries, that no doubt has resulted in some sort of very lucrative fee income as well. So
We do okay.
Okay, there you go. That's the important thing.
So David, what's it like to have a Bulgarian stalker?
Well, it's funny. I say that in jest because two of my best relationships have started this way. When I had written Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters eons ago, a guy by the name of Kevin Donlan called me up and said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Montreal next week. Can we meet?" And rather than tell him that's like a 3-hour drive, I said, sure, because he's flying from Minneapolis. We have this conversation. It's really interesting. And he ends up becoming a business partner in Guerrilla Market, getting the Guerrilla Job Search, which is now called My New Job Hunt. And Plamen was the same way. He called me and said, "Hey, I've got this tool. I've read your book. Let's talk." And when he took me through the tour of iIntro, what struck me was the similarities in the process that we followed to get to the end result. Now, we're a retained search firm, and it doesn't matter whether you use iIntro on your retainer or you're on contingency. What's important is that you actually have a process. And I think we're going to get to talk about it sometime today, not necessarily iIntro, but what's important in today's recruiting world and what they have built. And I guess you're part of it, James, is a nice, smooth process that's so crystal clear and logical And that's why I was asking you, have you read Executive Recruiting for Dummies? You should, because you'll laugh when you see the similarities as they break out. And I think that's very important because clients don't have time to do this stuff themselves. Most of them don't want to do this stuff themselves, but they do want to know that you have a process that's reliable and that you're going to deliver in the end. And I think that's the value of Executive Recruiting for Dummies. And I know it's the value of iIntro. So that's how this whole thing started.
Yeah, and David, just to share a couple of things with you. When you started out your recruitment business, Perry Martell, back in 1988, that was my first year in recruitment as well, by the way.
Wow.
So we've both been around a long time. You've still got hair, so you must have done something right. But look at me, God blimey.
It's all part of the illusion. None of this.
Yeah. But I think one of the interesting things, and it's a really important word to me, and it's not just about iIntro, because, and I will read. We spoke before, Plamen. I've not read Executive Recruiting for Dummies. God, how good an interviewer am I? Not very good to have done my homework there. But the important word, David, and I think it's important for everybody, is process. And it's structure that goes with that process. And I think you, as you said, you've written Executive Recruitment for Dummies, and we follow a process. We're a process management system, and today it's about using automation to make things more efficient. But when we started, I mean, I laugh about this when I talk to recruiters. I talk to them about what we call an analog recruitment process. You're ringing around for jobs, and you're getting the brief, and you're rushing out the CVs, and we used to fax them. And it's taking good methodology and delivering the right type of service. So I think that's the important part.
What we get paid to do as recruiters, what we get paid to do is economic marriages. And everything that goes in between the initial courting and the close, the marriage, is important. But a lot of it's noise. And the noise is the paperwork and the shuffling and the process stuff that's better off because, I got 35 years, you got 35 years in the business. We're so much better off now from every standpoint in using the technology to let us do our jobs or facilitate our doing our jobs and not have to do all that stuff. I am 1,000% more effective. I can do more in an hour today with technology than I could do in probably 3 days when I started out in 1988. And, I remember buying, we used to courier stuff, right? You fax or courier to make sure it got there, right? And I remember when Canada Post, because I'm in Canada, came out with a special. They were going into the business, the courier business, and I bought pre-packaged or courier packages, 100 of them. I got a real deal. I mean, it was a smoking deal. Now, in hindsight, was it a deal? No, not really, because like 3 months later, email started, and I started using. I have a stack of these things downstairs in my basement. I'm sure I've got 90 of them left.
When we started recruitment, I was not in recruitment. And when I came in, we started the business in 2007. By 2010, this business was operating on contingency basis with average fees above average here in the UK, but not enough. And what was the biggest problem that I've noticed is that with technology, and that's my point that I'm making here, with technology, recruiters that we work with became lazier. So rather than doing the work that was the art of recruitment, the craft of recruitment, they were doing the mechanical things. So getting used to these processes ultimately alienated them from the ability to actually learn the skill of being an excellent recruiter and follow processes. So CV supply became sort of the main issue. So moving forward a little bit, because I wasn't in recruitment, I needed to start from the basics and in a way sort of had a funnel vision as opposed to a tunnel vision. So my very first question was, why are we working on a contingency basis? Because I see some flaws in contingency. You're not in control of your fees. You've got an issue with the fact that you're competing with other recruiters and you're likely to fill 1 in 4, 1 in 5 roles if you're working on that basis with a CV supply service. So there must have been more. And we looked around, we saw that tier 1, tier 2 search firms and probably companies like you have got a process that enables them to actually position themselves different, win fees on a higher level, and most importantly, engage people on a retained basis. Now, for you, that's not an issue, but for the many recruiters, probably 95% of the recruiters in the world are still operating contingency CV supply or resume supply service. That's the challenge. So we stood up against the grain at the time, and we started to bring in a process. And I can tell you, at the beginning, it was so difficult, simply because people didn't appreciate it. And it was someone, I was standing like a sore thumb. I've been a Bulgarian as well, made it awkward. And I had moments where people were basically telling me, who are you to teach us how to do recruitment? Nonetheless, though, we've sort of forwarded to the point of where we now, I think the timing is right. And COVID, even though we cannot ignore its consequences around the world, has actually woken people up. So there is something for us to be grateful about, having experienced this difficult year. Nonetheless, though, I think the opportunity is in front of us.
I think that the recruiting industry is entering into its golden era for a couple of reasons. And we can talk about them or not. But I think now, after 35 years in the business, I don't think there's been a better time ever than to become a strategic partner with clients. Now, the challenge is most people don't understand what that means. Mm-hmm. And so from our vantage, it means talking about the hard issues and asking the hard questions and having business discussions with our clients. And in a lot of cases, saying no to companies. I met with a guy a couple of years ago. He sat with me and he said, listen, I want to hire you to hire a new VP of sales. And I said, wonderful. What happened to the last one? He says, well, he lasted about 9 months. I said, was there one before that? He said, yeah. I said, was there one before that? He said, yeah. Okay, so how many have you had since you've been on board the last 5 years? He said, 6. I said, and what was wrong with them? He said, they were all losers. I said, okay, let's frame that. I said, that's possible. So why do you want to talk to me? He says, well, I can either hire you to get the right VP, or I can sell the company. I said, do you have an offer? He said, yes. I said, sell the company. He says, why? So the mere fact you have to ask me that question means you don't know the answer, which means you shouldn't be the CEO anyway, but sell the company. I find out a little bit later that a couple of my friends, former clients, are investors, and all, phone to say, thank you for telling them to sell the company, because we just couldn't put any more money in. Unless someone takes ownership for what they have done or been part of in the process, then you're never going to get anywhere. And a lot of recruiters don't understand what questions to ask and what to look for when they're choosing clients. We talked to a client yesterday. We've only had them for a year. Wonderful people. The guy who's a CEO is really on track to be an Industry 4.0 leader. And we said, we're considering doing business with this company. I said, if we did that, we would have 2 companies exactly like yours, you and this other company, and that's it. We can't take on any more clients in this market space. I said, so he said, why are you telling me this? I said, because I'm telling you that if we do this, I'm not going to take their people to feed you, and vice versa. So you need to go away and make a decision. Can we take these people on as a client? And he just looked at me with like, deer in the headlights. I don't think anybody's ever asked him that. But that's the definition of being a strategic partner. I'm not going to do anything that's going to get in my client's way, inhibit them from getting the best people. And that's the biggest problem with the funnel of resumes that you're talking about, Plamen. Most people don't have an abundance mentality, right? They'll run an ad, say there's 100 people that are qualified or could do this job. They'll run an ad, 3, maybe 10 of them, because 10% are always looking. They'll apply and they'll take the best of those 10%. No, man. If your job is not to do that, your job is to package your client's opportunity and take that opportunity proactive to every single one of those 100 people and tell them why they should sit and listen to you and read this and follow through. And, that's part of executive recruiting for dummies. It's part of the process that you've built into iIntro. And this is the stuff that will, if people follow it, prevent recruiters from going out of business or prevent them from missing the golden age. Because there's never been a better time to be in this industry, monetarily or influence wise. Sorry, a bit of a rant there. I apologize.
David, it's not a rant because it resonates with us so strongly, and because we do believe we are entering golden era of recruitment as well. And you come back to that process, that methodology, and you've been doing it for a long time, so you just find this. It's an evolution. There are good opportunities ahead. And what we also see is that people don't recognize that you've got to position yourself as a strategic partner rather than just a CV vending service. Because if you're not adding value to the client's process, well, that's why there's been the rise in in-house recruitment. And in the same way that you've written books and several books, I mean, Plamen is more of an e-booker. So from that side of things, Plamen's written some ebooks. And one of his ebooks he launched in 2017, Plamen, The Death of Contingency Recruitment. Again, sometimes we face ridicule or trolling, I think they call it now on social media. Because, is Plamen saying it's going to die and disappear? Well, no, not really. But it's saying that if you're just in that if you're not separating yourself from the herd, you're going to face, one of a couple of things. You're either going to get wiped out by the in-house recruiters because you're not offering any different value, or your fees are going to be so suppressed, you're going to wonder, why are you doing this? Because you're having to run twice as fast to go half as far. So, there are different things that we need to take in place. So I think your point about strategic partnership and knowing the right questions. But the other thing that you've earned already, David, and Plamen, you've got this bit as well. You've earned the right to be able to, you're confident enough when you go meet a client, because you're not in a subservient relationship, it's peer-to-peer. So you're prepared to ask those questions that many people sometimes are too afraid that they're the deer in the headlights. Oh my gosh, I'm speaking to a CEO. I can't say that to him.
I distinctly remember the first time I met a specific client. I had just hired 2 VPs for a hospital. We're talking 30 years ago. And I went in to meet the CEO. I'd never met him. I did it on contingency. I was 26 at the time. And I'd just been handed my first trainee. And my first trainee was a 62-year-old former fighter pilot who had come over from one of the largest federal institutions in Canada on his second pension to learn to be a recruiter. And so he was my trainee, and I turned to Glenn and I said, Glenn, you want to come with me to meet the CEO and blah, blah, talk about these 2 placements? He said, sure. And so we we drove over to the hospital and went to the CEO's office, and his secretary showed us in, and she's got this funny look on her face. And I've been talking to her for months, right, when I'm doing this, but I'd never met the CEO, never met her. She's got this funny look on her face, and I walk into the office, and Bill jumps up from behind his desk and rushes over and grabs Glenn's hand and said, David, it's so nice to meet you. And Glenn, he looks like the man from Glad, silver hair, just looks the part, right? He steps back and says, no, I'm Glenn. I'm the trainee. This is David. And he says, CEO says to me, how old are you? And I said, quite proudly, 26. And I watched the blood just drain from his head, right? When it suddenly realized, oh my God, I put my career in the hands of a 26-year-old kid. Now, I did a great job. They built a hospital. They did a great job, but I lost that client. And the lesson I learned from that was the next almost 5 years, with only a couple of exceptions, I did everything from my desktop. I still worked on retainer because I believe in getting paid, but I did everything from my desktop and everything from the phone. It wasn't until I turned 30 I literally ventured out, and no ounce of exaggeration. I went to the hairdressers and had them put a little bit of gray, laughing, right? But seriously, a little bit of gray in my hair. So people couldn't quite tell I was a kid. I just had a baby face, right? And that suited me well for about the next 5 or 6 years.
Well,
so asking the right questions is important. If you ask them on the phone, they make assumptions that you're smart, that you're in tune, you're plugged in, you're turned on. They make all those assumptions based on the questions that you ask them, and not about the position, about the business. I grew up in a contingency agency where I sat across the table from a couple of ladies who made 70 phone calls a day. I made 4, but they made 70 phone calls a day because that was the objective. And it was a real thing. Do you have any needs? Click. Do you have any needs? Click. It was abysmal. But they were in the secretarial business, and I was trying to launch this executive search business for this temp agency. And I said I was 25 at the time, even younger, and I was asking different questions, and we were having conversation. But anyway, my fees were much larger. They were making $1,500. I was making $15,000, $20,000. It was interesting.
I'm telling you, you said something there. You're way ahead of your time. Actually, you don't know what I'm going to say here. In the sense that what you did is, because your age played against you, you found a way around that. So you became what we now call the remote recruiter. Because in this work from anywhere world that we now live in, you were doing that because now it wouldn't have worked then because we have Zoom and things like that. But you were actually working remotely to cover up the fact that your youth and supposed inexperience. Crazy. And I was going to suggest to you, hey, you should have gone and got some grey hair, but then you came up with a hairdresser story. That's why I was laughing so much.
I don't have to do that. Well, actually, I do that every day. That's what I meant to say. Look, I color my hair grey every day just to look more distinct. People can pay attention to me. But on a serious note, David, what you said earlier appealed to many recruiters that we speak to a question is, when you actually become a recruiter, what's the outcome that you're looking for? Are you trying to become a technician, a very good technician that works in the job and earns an amount of money, or are you trying to build a business? Now, building a business is not for everybody, but nonetheless, most people that actually start recruitment firms or as business owners, they have aspiration to grow it. And if you think of it, contingent recruiter is exactly what you've described it. Sadly, very few things have changed on the basis of this transactional client engagement. I.e., basically is order taking from the client, and very few people really understand how to talk to the client as far as business is concerned. I mean, over the latest training that we're doing here, we're saying to people that you need to understand the client's objective, not just to understand how many roles he needs, because these roles are serving ultimately a commercial objective. And if you understand what the commercial objective is, you'd be able to better serve the client and possibly consider some sort of longevity in the advice given, rather than just, here's a transaction, 5 CVs, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you again if you like what we've done. But there is no distinction. People remember alternative views. Sadly, with technology, what's happened over the past, I'd say 3 to 5 years, not too long ago, recruitment focused too much on speed and cost efficiency. So everybody's cutting their fees and everybody's buying technologies to increase the speed and provide some sort of cost efficiencies on the basis of how quickly I can churn a job. Rather than slowing it down, it's like in Jerry Maguire.
Yep.
Help me, help you. You need to understand the client's needs in order to be able to serve them properly. And unfortunately, recruiters don't have the time to train enough. I'm suggesting this one that obviously there's many exceptions, but if you look at the tendency of what recruitment is doing is basically speed and how cheap they can get it. So how cost efficient they can get it.
So you said something interesting. You said they don't have time. And I'll argue with you there. None of us have time. It's the only thing we can't make anymore. And we know that, right? So, not being philosophical here. But learning your craft, because this is a craft, it's part art, it's part science, therefore it's a craft, is a conscious endeavor. I mean, most people don't recognize that they have to put a lot into this, and it's not just becoming a recruiter, it's not just the HR side. It's learning the psychology, it's learning the marketing side, it's learning, I'm sending a note to Seth Godin today, if you guys know who Seth Godin is, and another one to Guy Kawasaki. And every time I do this, and because they endorsed my first book I wrote back in 2003, Total Strangers, I got them to endorse it. With Seth in particular, I always ask, would you mind if I sent you this? It's permission marketing, right? He wrote a book on it. Why would I not do this? And he said on a couple of occasions, he said, you're the only recruiter I actually respond to. And I said, well, why is that? He said, because you follow what we write. Can I do this? So, learning psychology, learning marketing, learning sales, that's where people need to go in our business. And it's a psychology first, right? I always say, so I'm going to get in trouble here. Twice now I'm going to get in serious trouble. The first is I always tell my kids, and I tell my clients this as well. I said, everybody always wants what they can't have, right? That's the reason there's lingerie. So slap one, slap two. And when I'm talking to job hunters, because they're in between opportunities, for guerrilla marketing for job hunters, I said, listen, forget about a 5-page resume that tells me your life story. I don't give a shit. I said, can you make me money? Can you save me money? Can you increase my efficiency? That's all I care about. That's all my client cares about. And you have to get my attention in, I don't know, about 6 seconds. Now, that's a fallacy, but I get why they say that. So I always say, it's not about the suit that you're putting on. It's lingerie. Think about the T's. What can you say in the first 3 sentences? It's like a book, right? Plamen, your first 3 sentences, people go, okay, I'm going to read the next paragraph. I'm going to read the next paragraph. I'm going to read the next paragraph. It's the same thing in marketing, whether you're selling to a client or you're selling a CV, yourself on a CV to somebody. You have to get them to take interest. So you have to package it interestingly, and you got to get their attention. That's marketing 101.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is recruiting 401 for most people, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because finding, if the job was all about just finding the best talent, there'd be a lot more successful recruiters. But if all you do is find great people, you've missed 90% of what you have to do to be successful as a recruiter, because everybody finds great people. In fact, you can go out and read 100 recruiter websites today, and not one of them will say, we find okay people, but the price is right. They all find great people. Anyway. Sorry.
I mean, I think one of the things you say there, and I remember. So go back to my first job in recruitment, and I proudly, when I got the job, because I was hunting around other jobs at the time, and recruitment seemed like an interesting career for me in my early 20s, and I had a business card that said James O'Brien, recruitment consultant. And I was proud. Hey, Mom, look what I am. Yeah. But in those days, you saw yourself in that particular way. But then over the years, and maybe it was true then. I mean, maybe I just didn't realize it. We stopped using the word recruitment consultant and we use the word recruiter. And you then come back to this part where you're talking about how do you become that strategic advisor? Well, you've got to consult with people. You've got to be prepared to ask the difficult questions, make the difficult point, not because you're trying to win friends, but you're trying to help them understand. And so one of the phrases we try and, when we talk, I deliver a lot of training programs with people. I say, I need to get out of the psychology of being a recruiter, because when I look around at why hiring fails, why that guy hired 6 people in 5 years, it wasn't because the recruiter didn't find him great people. There were other reasons why it went wrong, to do with his or her management style and other factors, which we can delve into another time.
He was the problem. He just didn't recognize it.
Yeah, but nonetheless, there would have been ways to find somebody who could have worked with him, but he had problems. It was his style. So what we say to people is you've got to become a management consultant who specializes in talent acquisition. So you've got to be broader than that. You've got to show people that you can actually go and find out those particular pieces, because it's not about finding somebody who can do the job. Because I say every recruitment firm, like I said, they don't put, I'm okay at finding you okay people. They'll put, I find all the best people, and every recruiter can find people. Yeah, but that's what we're trained to do. You're trained to, sort through. They may not go as deep. They might just stop at the first 10 out of the 100. But they'll find a resume, a CV, and throw it out to somebody. And occasionally you hit a lucky streak, and somebody buys one of your CVs, and away you go. But the reality is going deeper to find that, finding candidates with the right skills, knowledge, and experience, as well as the fit, the organisation, the ability to perform that organisation. That takes a little bit further, and that's the process that you've evolved yourself, David, over many years. And Plamen, it's what we've done at iIntro in terms of trying to automate some of those processes, because that can help people. Because it come back to what you said earlier, it's a process, and that's what you've learned over the years. And those are the things that we push.
There is a very interesting dynamic which I've observed through my experience here, especially in the UK, and no doubt that is very likely to be the case in the US for certain, and no doubt in Canada. Now, the recruitment process, if you think of it from a client's point of view, most clients will perceive recruiters as someone that provides 5 CVs.
Yeah.
And most clients will perceive the recruiter, there is a benchmark of a price. So the price may be, I know what the price is in the UK, sadly. The 2019 stats from the Recruitment and Employment Confederation suggest that the fees at that year were 14.7% average fee. More than 64% of the recruitment industry operates below 15% fees. Now, UK, I must admit, is a very, very competitive market. We've got over 35,000 recruitment firms, and I believe this year they've grown up because of this fragmentation, people coming out of businesses and starting their own business.
Yeah.
Actually, what I've noticed that since 2009, when they started to publish these, I've seen gradual reduction in fees. Now, if you just analyze this one a little bit further, why are fees decreasing? And I have got one answer, or possibly it's a combination of things, but bottom line is that fees are decreasing for one simple reason. Clients no longer perceive the value of the CV supply service, which is common across the board here, as something that they should pay more money. Not only that, there is another component, which is a big challenge. The big challenge is that this very same technology and automation that we're talking about is now competing against this method of recruitment services. And clients are basically saying now, especially the ones that can, why should I be paying a recruiter hundreds of thousands of dollars or pounds in fees, where I can actually hire an in-house team, put 2 people there, buy them the same automation that they're using at this moment in time to identify candidates, and job's done. So that's the biggest challenge. And what we said to ourselves, and that's how iIntro was actually born out of this frustration, this very frustration that clients no longer see, well, recruiters don't see anymore. And because it's actually clients and recruiters are equally complicit in the failure, if there is one in recruitment, and the fact that we've got reducing margins, etc. The whole process is flawed, being delivered on a contingency basis. So how do you get the client to engage on a more meaningful basis? And the only way you can do it is if you have a service, as you quite rightly mentioned earlier, that actually takes care of the problem, does the job better than the client, and it gives a risk reversal that the client deserves. Now, we've posted, James will tell you, I'm just going to carry on a little bit further here, on a different tangent, but not dissimilar. We posted on 2 occasions videos on my LinkedIn profile when James is actually saying that recruiters should give 12 months replacement. And it went viral. It went viral and everybody was critical. Why should we, recruiters, take responsibility for what the clients do after we've appointed? And I said, that's exactly my point. You've got to take the responsibility. Otherwise, you will see fees going down from 15% to 14% to 10%, and then no margin enough for you to stay in business. You've got to change. And the only change you can offer is a meaningful service that consults to clients. And it tackles 3 main areas: time, people, and money. If you address the way how to deal with reduction of commercial downtime, increase candidates retention and new employees retention, and do it better overall, reduce the client's overall cost to hire, then there is no reason why clients should choose you. Naturally, we need to pre-frame it with the craft that you're talking about of understanding business. People need to know how to interrogate the client so they get to the bottom of it as to why they're recruiting these 2, 3, 5, or 10 roles.
Violent agreement on this and complete alignment, because I have noticed over the last 10 years, and somebody pointed this out to me after they sat in on the call with me, they said, you never discussed the fee. I said, well, they never asked. And they said, why was that? And I said, well, because I don't think they asked what my fee was, because by the time we were finished, they were more concerned that we wouldn't take the project than how much they were going to have to pay. I said, it's well known that we have a 1-year replacement program.
Yeah.
You know, it's over 1,500 searches now for me personally. I've replaced 6 people in 35 years. Wow. And that includes the first 2 that were at another agency, right? So for that, we're at an agency before I even started Perry Martell. And the way the 1-year guarantee came along is we have hockey teams in Canada. And in Ottawa, we started one called the Ottawa Senators. And it was one of my clients who wanted to bid on this particular project, because it was, hundreds of millions of dollars to build the stadium. And they needed an electrical and electronic engineer to design the building, all the electricals and electronics in the building. And so they gave it to me. And by the way, I charged $135 an hour to do this, and which is much cheaper than the other agencies. But the CEO was waffling, and I said, "What's the issue?" I said, "I'm much cheaper, much more cost effective. I understand real estate and construction." He said, "Yeah, but if you screw it up, I'm dead." I said, "Well, what would you like? Would you?" He said, "I'd like a 1-year guarantee." I said, "Done." He said, "Really?" I said, "Absolutely." So the process that we built Because when you're charging $135 an hour, you're not making a lot of money, even in 1988. The process that we built was designed so that we never had to redo it.
Yeah.
So when I step clients through the process of, I don't know what you do, Mr. Client, but here's what we do to, understand where you're at, because I'm taking responsibility, because I got to vet this person and I got to guarantee them. And if you're an idiot, we shouldn't be clients. I actually say that if you're an idiot, we shouldn't be clients. I'm going to ask you some questions to make sure you're not. And I've already asked them to other people. So I, relax. But then I step them through the process, and it takes about 10 minutes for me to, here, one second. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is this is our 8-page brochure. This is the centerfold. I'm not on the centerfold, thank God. But I literally, if it's first time client, I'll open this on the desk and I'll walk them through it upside down to show them how everything fits. And I said, when you do that, what you end up with is a candidate at the end of the process that's been through the process. They know who you are. They know what they need to do. They've auditioned for the job. They've literally come in and said, America's Got Talent, here's what I'm going to do the first 30, 60, 90 days. We've all agreed. That's the last step, second last step. We've all agreed. So there's no ramp up period of 4 to 6 weeks or a couple of months. This guy, this gal, the day they start, boom, out the gate. And by the way, they're fully supported from all your executives, because they've all had, probably 6 weeks time to vet this candidate and say, well, I don't agree with this, or I don't like that. So what that happens is you have a guy or a gal that's fully committed to doing the job that you've hired them to do. And they're there not for the money. People don't join a company for money. They join a company based on what they think the organization is going to accomplish. It's never about the money, because someone's always got more. It's about the team, what the company stands for, what it's going to accomplish. I said, when you recruit that way, they're unrecruitable. No one steals your people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they can talk to a recruiter and say, hey, listen, this is why you should be working for us, instead of going off to talk to somebody else. So you build your team. And I think that's the most interesting thing for COVID now for me, is there's never been a better time to sit down with a prospect, a client, and say, so what's a dream team look like? You can have anybody, because you can. You can have anybody. What's it look like? Fantasy football, call it whatever you want, right? What does it look like? And how can we, what do we need to do to go about building that team? Because that's the team that's going to get you to where you want to go. And if a client looks at you and they're scared, they're not a prospect, because they don't get you. They're going to pay you 10% or 15%. But if the client gets excited and goes, you mean like I could really talk to Gretzky, or I could have, who's that soccer player that we all know so well in the States? He moved over. Brigham, sorry.
Beckham.
Thank you. I was never going to be able to pronounce it. Can I have him on the team? Yeah, you can have him and his wife and Spice, and Scary One too, if you want. We just have to make sure that we understand how we're going to position this opportunity so they get it. So we don't have to buy them into the process. They want to join. They want to be part of the process. This is how we create, this is how we make them audition to be part of this team. There's never been a better time to do that.
I think it's fascinating, because a lot of recruiters you meet say, you hear them bitching about their clients and say, listen, if you've got bad clients, look in the mirror, you let them in. You let them in. Clients, and it comes back to that relationship. They, a lot of recruiters, they're just looking up in awe, and they've got it wrong. And the bit when you are a retained consultant, as you are, there's a limitation as to how many roles you can really work on with quality. So it's like saying to a client, when you're looking for one, maybe 2 new clients this month, this quarter, whatever it may be. So I hope it's you, but if it's not you, I'm not worried, because there's 2 of us at this meeting. One of us has got a problem, and it's not me.
Yeah,
it's you. So I can help you, but if you help me help you, as you said, Plamen, give them some of that information to help them understand that I can deliver what you want. I can deliver the dream team.
An interesting point, guys, here. You know Lou Adler.
Yeah.
And
not well, but I do know Lou, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Lou Adler teaches something called performance-based hiring.
Yep.
But ultimately, when a job is sold, or when it's delivered to a prospective candidate, they're not talking about the job of the title and the money today. They're talking about what the job looks like 12 months from now, 24 months from now. So look in the future. This is what excites people, and it excites the right people for the right reasons.
Correct.
So my point is that this is consultative recruitment. The more you get involved with the client, and once again, as you said, you can't win them all, but ultimately the ones that you will win will be the golden clients, the advocates that are likely to continue to do business with you because they'll appreciate and they'll enjoy the reason that you've done something for them that is quantifiably added value to them. We need to look for more meaningful engagement with our clients, and I believe the industry will shift into this direction. And it's inevitable simply because clients can buy the value add that is currently being delivered to them through machines that will cost considerably less. Identifying candidates these days is not that difficult to do, but finding the right candidates and knowing it professionally so you can advise the clients to do so is not is actually the skill set where I think the industry will go.
You know, it's interesting. I'm laughing because I agree, but I'm laughing because, you know, I've always thought this way for 30 some odd years, and I've tried to educate clients. And sometimes, you know, C-level people, so I'm 61 now. Everybody listens to me. It's amazing. I click past 55 and all of a sudden it's like, he is smart. Okay. So I've tried this with clients for years, but you know, it takes a long time to get through the C-suite down to HR so that HR becomes a partner and doesn't blow it at the last minute. So there's another way to do this. And we've started this. And it's about to become a big, big push. We have all this COVID going around. People have, literally millions of people have lost their jobs. And I'm sure that there are many people that are sitting back and thinking, you know, what should I do next? In what industry, what should I do? It's a restart, it's a reboot for a lot of people. So with the series of Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters books, I'm writing the 4.0, the fourth edition now. And this edition is written to solve this issue. I always tell clients that I got to ask them a couple of questions to assess whether or not I think we're a good fit. I mean, ultimately, you decide whether we're a good fit and you pay us or not. But I got to ask you a couple of questions. And clients have said, well, those are really probing questions. And I go, yeah. I said, the way to think about it is the following. If I work for you for 5 or 10 years, I'm investing in you. So if I'm going to put $5 million into an investment, my time, the cash I'm going to get out, it's a lot of stuff I want to know about you. So I'm going to ask those hard questions. And that's gone very well with the clients. So now I'm taking that whole concept and I talk about it with my friends, you know, when they're looking for jobs, because I refuse to place my friends. I will teach them, including my best friend, I will teach them how to do it, you know, teach them to fish rather than give them the fish. And they hate me for it when we start, because I can just solve a problem like this, but I force them to learn this stuff. I always tell them, you got $1 million. You just won it in the lotto. You got to invest. You can't stick it in the bank. You got a whole bunch of investments around. You have to pick one by Friday. How do you choose? They go, I don't know. I said, well, I would come up with a list of criteria and questions that you're going to ask each one of those companies before you give them the $1 million, because you got to give them the whole $1 million. You can't just give them a little piece of this, a little piece of that. I said, the same with job hunting. If you're 20 years old, you're going to go work for the next 30 years and you're making $50,000 a year, do the math. It's in the millions that you're about to invest in that company. Are they the type of people that you're going to get up in the morning and go, yeah, it's Monday, yeah. Or, oh my God, it's Monday. And you want the, yeah, it's Monday. So I'm putting this into the new book, and we've just built out a platform. Plamen, you've gone the direction of building a platform for recruiters. We've gone the other direction. We've built a platform for job hunters. It's called My New Job Hunt. It's had a soft launch. My New Job Hunt. It's had a soft launch. I'm about to take it out to recruiters, because rather than try and change millions of HR managers or hiring managers' mind, I'm going to train up the job hunters themselves on what to ask and what to look for.
Very good.
That will force the other side, because it is a side. We should be working together, but it's a side. That will force the guys on the other side of the table to smarten up and not ghost candidates, to have real answers. to understand that when you set a deadline that you're going to call back in the afternoon, by God, unless you got hit by a car and you can't talk anymore, because if you get hit by a car and you can't talk, you should be on the phone telling them, hey, listen, I got hit by a car, let me call you tomorrow. So I'm going to train job hunters, and Guerrilla Marketing for Job Hunters series of books, and the Guerrilla Marketing series has sold 57 million copies.
Yeah.
So my ability to take a fresh perspective out to job hunters, I'm in a very good position to do that, and I intend to, and that will change the dynamic, because they only, most hiring managers are pretty smart. If they get asked a series of questions 2 or 3 times in a row and they haven't got the answers, smack, they're going to smarten up and start to think more clearly about what it is they actually need, rather than saying, well, I'll know them when I see them. Bullshit. Obviously you're blind. So another question. So what I'm doing, and the sales channel for this product, my new jobhunt.com, the sales channel is, I'm going to go out to the recruiting industry and say, hey, listen, how would you like to get paid to help everybody? Not place everybody, because you can't place everybody, but you can help everybody. So if you're running a project and you've got 50 candidates and you place one and you've got 49, send them a link to my new job hunt. And if they sign up, we'll send you money. And they'll get a discount. And that's how I intend to, on a mass basis, educate all the English speaking world I can that looks for a job. And the reason we're doing this is I'm 61 years old. I'm only going to do this for 4 or 5 more years. And I'd actually like to see some substantive change around in the world on global warming and a whole host of other issues that I don't think we ever get a chance to get to, because we're so worried about what we're doing tomorrow with our jobs. And if we have a job, that it's stacked against you. If you can actually put together a process that allows people to self-select into jobs that they want and they can do, that level of anxiety in the world goes down, and we get to turn around and help the rest of the world come to our level, or their economy come up to our level. And I think there was a lot less bad things that will happen in the world if we do that. So,
David, you've been doing that for a
now.
No, but you've been doing that for a while. Because I remember listening to one of your stories. I think it was when there were a load of people laid off. So we're in a time when lots of people are losing jobs. And I think it was Nortel, where there were lots of people. And you said you can't help it. I mean, we can't place everybody.
No.
And sometimes it's about how you help the other people and how they remember you, because you were the good guy. Because the thing I've struggled with recruitment is the transactional nature of the fact that people are just like commodities and just discarded. If you're not the golden candidate, I'm not talking to you. But they took the time to come through to it. And I think what you're saying here is, to the recruiters. So I think it's a really good message for them to look out for this marketing message that's going to come from you, is how can you help the hundreds or thousands of people who come through you to help themselves? So listen, it's a fascinating thing. So mynewjobhunt.com. Make sure we'll be looking out for it and look to help you in any way, because it's the other side of the market, but you're looking at that side. And I started off this presentation and I told people you're a good human being, and you are.
Thank you. Now, we put a lot of time in this and a lot of money. We essentially sold, and I don't believe in taking from my business and putting into another business, even if I own it. I'm a partner. So we essentially went out and we started these job search boot camps on stage in Detroit in 2009, when unemployment was 49%. And I announced this boot camp, and Kevin Donlan gets off the stage with me and says, "What the hell are you talking about? We don't have a boot camp." I said, "It's Friday night, Monday morning. I'll be set with the first week's stuff." And that's how it all started. We put 214 people through these boot camps. All but 2 graduated. You graduated into a new job, and you graduated into one of the 10 jobs you originally listed as, I want to work here. Yeah. So that's graduation. And we charged on average $4,999 for each of them to come. That's a lot of money. A lot of people had to go and borrow the money. They didn't have it. Everybody tried to, nickel and dime me or get me to bring them on board. No, I'm not interested. Don't care. I have a heart. I'm more interested in the bigger picture. Don't care. Go get the money, borrow it. Many of them did. But we took all that money. It was a lot of money. We took all that money and plowed it right back into the platform. because we had built the platform and we were getting ready to launch it. It was my best friend that built it. And he called me one morning and said, I found the bug. Because I was one of these software guys. I was on a couple of boards of directors. And I said, don't ship it unless it's perfect, right? So I wouldn't let Kevin ship it. So he calls me, and it's Canada Day. He calls me and said, found the problem. We're going Monday. I said, fan, what is it? He said, I'll tell you Monday. I said, don't tell me now. I said, got to go. Kids are in the car. And he dropped dead that day.
Oh,
He dropped dead. So, and he took everything with him, all of the codes and everything to get into the software. So, you know, he's my best friend. And as a memorial, his brother and I, we didn't really know each other well, decided that we would finish this off in his honor. Well, it's been a march for 4 years. And Dave Watson, literally from the ground up, and you'll appreciate this, James, he built a CRM. There's like 85,000 lines of code. He built a CRM. He built a CSM over top of it. He built an information repository that delivers, you know, the information all from scratch. Works really, really well. It's not the sexiest thing, but boy, does it work, and it works well and it works exactly how we used to work when we did these virtual boot camps.
Wow.
So that's my next thing.
Well, I love that story, Plamen. I want you to give me a story. I've got a story because I think you might have a parallel, because it just sounds like that David said he went out and sold something that didn't quite exist. What parallel have you got to Plamen in pitching iIntro?
Well, do you know, iIntro has an interesting story. I was part of a club called the Pinnacle Club, run by a gentleman called Mike Walmsley in the UK. And we're getting together every month. And for me to come to London and attend a morning meeting that starts at 8:30, 9 o'clock, I needed to get up at 3:30, catch the first train at 5 o'clock, and travel to London or drive for the same reason. So, but either way, I'd turn up at this meeting relentlessly, religiously, whatever you want to call it, every month. And as part of the discussion, there's about 15 to 20 people attending each time. These are business owners, non-competing, and we're sharing different points of view, bringing up topics, questions, etc. Then there is someone that will come in and present a particular topic of interest. Then we'll agree action points, and then we'll disperse and come back the next month and start the process again. So I've been thinking, and you know, when I became a recruiter in 2010, we started a process which in a period of 18 months changed our business from 100% contingent to 100% retained. It increased our productivity dramatically per consultant. On top of that, we virtually doubled the size of our fees, as well as we moved up the percentage terms. So everything was working perfectly well. We won the best search and selection firm in the UK, nominated for Specialism Excellence in Innovation. So I'm thinking what we're doing actually works. So how about me thinking this has a bigger commercial value, but also if you look at the higher purpose is to be able to influence recruitment in such a way that it ultimately benefits everybody.
Yep.
So I stood up, as James mentioned, I stood up in front of 15 people and I said, I want to share with you a vision. Imagine if you're able to provide multi-layer assessment and move away from transactional CV supply into more consultative element, which actually pays more attention to assessments and selection, accurate assessments and selection. And we put it all into a software and we'll create it, etc., put all these bells and whistles. Would you buy it? And most of the people, including James O'Brien, he was in the audience.
I was, yeah.
Raised their hands. So I said, well, what is it? I said, well, it doesn't exist, but leave it with me. So 12 months later, I already had it in my mind, but I obviously tested it. People said they'll buy it. So we launched it a year later. And as a matter of fact, all the people that attended this initial meeting, probably 70% bought it. And I gave it on preferential terms because they were all the guinea pigs, frankly speaking. And after 6 months, we had to scrap the software that we've created. We had to build a brand new one. But it was good because it was then market-led. All the people gave us feedback as to what they wanted. And eventually that became version 2 of the software. We're just about to launch another version, which hopefully will be even better. But that's another story.
David, I just want to tell you, when he says preferential terms, they didn't feel preferential.
Good, because he shouldn't have lowered his fees. You know?
I don't think he did. I think he's got that bit his own story wrong from my memory. But anyway, that's sort of one of those stories where you are. But it's where you have for the greater good, and you bring the, you're sort of doing it for other things. It's not just to make a few dollars here or there. It's about making the world a better place. And I think you both sort of share that. And I think when people are listening to this, because we're recording this in early 2021, so whenever you're listening to it in 2025, we're just coming out of a crisis in the marketplace, and in terms of how people have seen that. And so, David, again, you've had experience, Plamen, less so in the recruitment sector, of coming through, global crises or national crises in your own country where people come through it. So, from recruiters who sometimes, depending on what market you're in over the last years, obviously some have absolutely flown, of course, but some of them are actually holding their head in their hands, thinking, "What do I do next?" So, if you've got any sort of kind words or maybe harsh words, but true words to help them, embrace that golden era, what do they have to do to make that change?
So that's a great question, and here's how I would sum up what you need to do as both a job hunter and recruiter, because it's the same thing, and it's been the same for 2,000 years, perhaps. But what you need to do is find someone who's got a problem that you can fix and tell them how you're going to do it, and then do it. Job hunter, recruiter, doesn't matter. And, fees are irrelevant. The way I tell my friends to shut down the
company
fee discussion, as I always say, well, next time they bring it up, ask them what kind of car they drive. And then when they tell you, you go, well, a Lada's cheaper. Yeah. And then they'll tell you why they're not going to drive a Lada and how they deserve something better. And then you just say, yep, you're right. Pause 2, 3. I don't drive a Lada either. And I won't let my kids drive one. And that's why our fees are the way they are. If you don't like it, you can talk to the next guy. I won't hold it against you if you have to come back in 6 or 9 months and get us to redo their work, because we'll just do it right the first time. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
And you'll back it up, David. I think that's the bit you said when you came up with your 12-month guarantee. When you sort of clients, absolutely, you'll do that, and it's all about the value of service. And I think it's about having the. I sometimes say it's bravery. It may not be that. It's just actually having the gumption to stand up for your fees. And whatever your analogy you want to use, what type of car you drive, you got to be prepared to say it, because I think it's one bit when people are going through pitches, they sometimes sort of leave it right till the end and almost sliding out the door and sort of embarrassingly say what their fees are, because recruitment fees, for most transactional recruiters, they're like stalactites. They only go down because quite often they're only playing with one lever. And that is the fees. And so you've got to introduce other things like an extended replacement policy that you mentioned. So you can say to the client, what's the value proposition here? How can I help you? And understanding that, as you said, come back to me in 6 to 9 months, when you want it done correctly, if it hasn't worked out, because as often as not, it fails. I've read a piece of research, people can look it up, leadership IQ. They said that 46% of new hires fail within the first 18 months. So if you don't do it right first time, you're going to get it wrong and you're going to come back. So that cheap fee you got, I used to say this to my barber, good haircuts aren't cheap and cheap haircuts aren't good. And now I don't need to bother. Recruitment, though.
The thing that I enjoyed most when I first met Plamen was taking me through the arithmetic formula. To ask the questions that I could and I remember doing this going, okay, so I got a client I've done this with. And I'm giving their answers and to show them conclusively by math, because I'm an economist, right? I'm an economist and a statistician by training. I'm just became a headhunter because there wasn't enough money in the other stuff, right? I wanted to live this decadent life. But when you go through the math and show them this is your reality and this is what your reality could be, I said at the end of the year, do you want your CapEx to read this or do you want your CapEx to read this? Because your bonus depends on how much is left over at the end of the year. So selfishly, you really want to pay us what we're worth because it's not really more, you're saving.
Yeah.
And
I've got a great one for you, David. I've got a great one, David. I just want to give you, sorry to interrupt you there, because it's on that same line. It comes from the recruitment process audit that we do. When I'm sort of helping people.
That's the one. David is referring to the same thing.
I know. Well, there's a question I want you to take away, and also for people listening, it's what I call my killer question, because it really strikes home with people. So typically, we'll ask people of the last 10 people they've hired, how many get to their first year anniversary? And the most common answer is 6, 7, or 8. Occasionally, you get a 9, very rarely a 10, because perfect recruitment doesn't exist in a transactional world. So you say to an employer, how do they feel? So they say 7 out of 10. And the natural instinct, I'm a glass half full type of guy, 7 out of 10 feels all right, doesn't it? So you congratulate them, say, listen, that's well done. It's a lot better than some organizations, but let me just turn that on its head. That does mean that 30% of your new hires leave within the first 12 months. That is correct, isn't it? Of course it's correct. Yeah. So here's a killer question. Depending on what industry they're in. Let's say they're involved in food manufacturing, engineering, whatever happens to be. Say, is there any other process in your business where you'd accept the failure rate of 30% and not do anything about it? And the answer is, well, no. Well, why do you let it happen with people? It's because you haven't got the right process in it. You haven't engaged the right process to determine what success looks like. So I think we can help people in that way. It is about understanding that. It's just it's a mathematical equation. It's the cost. It's the impact on their bonus. All of those type of things. So I think we can really help them on those.
Yeah, the challenge with HR, I'd just follow up on that for a second, James. As I've sat on a number of boards, and I sat on the SHRM's board, Society for Human Resource Management. And they were attempting to get IEEE standards for job descriptions, which blew my mind. I just assumed we had them, but we didn't. Anyway, went through this whole thing with them for 3 years. I was the only one that had ever gotten IEEE standards for anything that was on this board of 80 people as consultants and 240 people on the final committee. It was a disaster. And before they were able to go and get IEEE standards, 2 of their very senior members, biggest companies, went to the CEO, who's no longer there, and said, if you get these standards approved, we're no longer members. And the CEO, stunned, said, why? He said, because right now we have no accountability. Think about that. HR does have no accountability. Sales, marketing, finance, manufacturing, everybody else is accountable, right? HR is not, because they sit with a hiring manager and they talk about what the hiring manager wants, but the hiring manager makes the decision, right? So it's their fault, not HR's fault. They brought in the people, they chose the wrong one. And why do I bring this up? Because when I wrote Executive Recruiting for Dummies, I had a couple of friends phone me and say, listen, this is just stupid. You're going to tell them all the secrets, then you're going to eliminate us. And I said, no, I'm not looking to eliminate recruiters. I'm looking to educate hiring managers so that HR managers who have not been trained in how to recruit, because they don't get that training in university or college, can do what they have been trained to do. And hiring managers can be held accountable for the people that they hire. When you do that, we solve the problem. Putting out Executive Recruiting for Dummies allows anybody to follow a process. They may choose not to, but they can follow a process so that every time they are correct. And they went with all the billions of dollars that, and James, you're more aware of this probably than Plamen, but with all the billions and tens of billions of dollars that has been spent on technology, recruitment, how is it that we still have a 22 to 24% churn rate? I mean, mathematically, this is North America. Got to be technically impossible, but no, because the technology does not enable you to make a better decision. It just enables you to make the wrong decision more efficiently. And that's the part that we have to change. We have to change making the right decision.
Technology efficiently helps us manage our inefficiencies. Okay, I'll remember that. Yeah, that's
get the wrong faster.
We're going to believe that this is the golden era of recruitment, Plamen, but people live in a little bit of fear at the moment, and I think there are 5 stages of behaviour in a crisis, and we're coming out of crisis. And if people are going to adopt or embrace the golden era, Plamen, what are your thoughts on those? On what we call those 5 factors? Yeah.
In March, when the industry just shut down, not only the industry, the whole of the world shut down with COVID, and we are with absolutely the worst possible scenario in terms of no outcome. Nobody had any expectation. It was very scary. And I sat down, and possibly within the first few days, I wrote something which I included in my presentations when I talk to people. And this was like the 5 stages of human behavior under crisis. But the first one is overreaction, contraction, fear. Now, this results in what we saw happen. People stop businesses, people stop spending, people shut everything down. Some even went ahead and started to sack or terminate staff. This is what happened at the beginning. But human nature is always looking in a positive way. I believe humans are positive people, and ultimately they look for the better. So the next stage is you find your new normal. Where are we now? What does it look like? Oh, we need to work from home. Okay, well, let's make an adjustment. Let's start working from home. So we know when this happened, everybody sort of adjusted, reduced their expectations. Humanity came out. Actually, people started to help each other a lot more. The next stage is hope, where you're looking for some sort of evidence that tells you that things are changing, and some act quicker in anticipation. What I call this one, these are the early adopters. The early adopters will find the opportunities before the market is changed. But if you look at the logic, and here's the logic, that's the purpose of this, that after stage 3, it comes inevitably at some stage. I don't know the exact time, but hopefully you can anticipate it when you're looking for signs of hope. And this could be the vaccine, this could be the tests, this could be the fact that they've contained the virus in some way, shape, or form. The next stage is opportunities. People starting to look for opportunities, and the early adopters are the ones that actually find the opportunities and adjust to the opportunities a lot quicker. And then obviously the 5th stage is where the early arrival, the late arrivals, these are the people that say, oh, now it's time to go. It's like looking at Bitcoin. Bitcoin, many years, I don't invest in Bitcoin, I don't have anything to do, but I'm curious with observing what's happening. If you think of it, exactly the same human behavior is being portrayed there. Started from $10 and nobody paid attention to it for years. Then 2 years later, suddenly it's gone up and then gone down to 6,000. It became a talking point. And recently it's like $40,000 or something like that. And everybody's now talking about Bitcoin. They want to jump on the bandwagon and make money. When it's 40,000, I think it'll go forever. So that's the process. First one is fear. Second is new normal. Third one is hope, which brings new opportunities, early arrivals, early starters. Then you've got late arrivals, and then obviously the laggers at the end.
I think
very interesting. I think this logic, it's inevitable. Sorry, James. It's inevitable that the market will open. We just need to prepare for it. That's my advice to any recruiter that I speak to at this moment in time. That's the future.
So, David, I mean, in terms of thinking about that for a moment, in terms of just looking at the fact that, you sort of said earlier that, teams can have what they want, but what advice would you give to recruitment business owners at the moment who are thinking about, well, whether we're in the, the slow recovery stage and we're just coming through the hope phase or whatever it may be to see where those green shoots, what should people do now to embrace that golden era that you spoke about earlier?
So I can tell you what we're doing. So what we're doing, I would suggest others do. And what we're doing is we're looking across the marketplace. We have 3 niches: real estate, commercial real estate, construction, and tech. And they've always been kind of counter-cyclical, but not necessarily. But what they have in common is they have CEOs and founders that tend to be visionaries. And you can't be a visionary if you don't have hope. So that by definition is Plamen's level 3. So what we're doing is we're looking out there and we're finding the companies where the CEO is a founder, that they've got a sales force. They're in anywhere from $1 million to $50 million startup phase. And, we're having conversations that say, listen, I don't know what you're thinking. However, what you do today is going to affect your profitability and your stabilization for for 3 months out. So if you're thinking that you'd like to put together, a great product management team, or go and meet all of the best marketers, or put together your dream team on the executive side, or your sales team, then we should have a conversation. And let's see if we can do that for you and craft a plan. And, right now, we're sitting on 5 retainers. We charge 33%, by the way. It's always 33%. Don't like it, you just go use somebody else, and then you come back to us. And we will sign 3 more retainer agreements over the next 3 days. So we're full, and we have a battery of prospects as clients who are sitting on the side going, have you finished that project yet? Because we'd really like you to start ours.
Yeah.
And we just say yes or no. But it's all come from the last 3 months. And today's the best day to start if you haven't started it yet. The last 3 months of having these conversations about where are you headed? Do you want to stay in business? Do you feel hopeful? Because if you don't feel hopeful, we got nothing to talk about. But if you do, what can we change, or what needs to be changed now so that you're in better shape as you come out of this, so you can take market share or launch a new product or whatever? That's it.
Yeah, I think, David, I think the only thing that people can, the only thing you do is actually have the right level of conversation that we spoke about earlier. Because if you're just ringing around asking, have you got any vacancies, or have you got any needs, or whatever terminology you use, well, you just, occasionally you hit lucky and you think you're okay. But the reality is actually having those conversations, but also having the right attitude to go out there and talk to people in the right way, I suppose, and identify with those people who have hope.
So that agency that I tried to open the executive search firm for, it was my first agency experience. I was on a draw of $500 a month. And I quit a bank to go and do this because I really thought I could do this well. And I got married while I was at that company. And the Friday before I got married, my boss, popped some champagne and gave everybody stuff. And as I was going, he said, hey, close the door and I'll talk to you. So I thought he was going to give me a bonus or anything. No, he said, listen, if any of your deals close while you're on your honeymoon, you don't get credit for it. I said, what are you talking about? I'm working on these for months. He said, no, you got to be here for the close to get the money. And so I went down the hallway. I said, I'm not going to argue with him. Went down the hallway and I told the ladies that I was working with, who were in the temp division, listen, if anybody calls because they're going to hire these people, don't tell Gary. Don't tell Gary. Oh yeah, okay. So I go, I have my honeymoon. It was a disaster, my honeymoon. That's a funny story, but later. I come back, I go to the office. I find that 3 of my deals have closed. $84,000. This is 1985 or 86. Like minimum wage was $230. And $84,000 closed, and he owed me 50%. Long story short, he told me that this had never happened before. I just got lucky, and he fired me, and he gave me nothing. So I walked down the street and got lucky for somebody else. And this has never, ever stopped. And I've been through 5 recessions now. A severe recession, probably 1 depression, really. And no matter what, there's always a way to do a deal. And it comes down to find the person who's got the problem you can fix and tell them how you're going to do it. It is as simple as that. And I talk to job hunters all the time when they say it's 10% unemployment. I said, what does that mean? 10% unemployment. Forget the numbers. What does it mean? It means there's 90% employment. Not exactly, but pretty close. That's how you have to look at it. You have to figure out how you get yourself in that 90%. And maybe now is the time to look at what you were doing and what you really want to do in life. Now, this is the perfect time to make that flip, because everybody's got the excuse, I got hit by the market. So don't make the same mistakes. Figure out what you want to do, go and make it happen. I always sign my books, The Future's in Your Hands. It's meant to be a pun, but it literally is. It's in your hands because no one loves you as much as you do. Maybe your mother, but probably not, right? Because I know you guys. But anyway, I made him laugh.
It makes more sense than anything. And something, people, when you actually talk to people, you've got a choice, either to influence or to be influenced, or to become a buyer or a seller. And sadly, on most occasions, recruiters are focused on exactly what you described for you. Have you got any jobs? Have you got any jobs? Have you got any jobs? And eventually they get one or two here and there. So they think, I'm doing well. But the true value is when you're able to do exactly what you just described as an example a moment ago, to be able to influence the client in a direction that they've never seen before. That's the uniqueness of consultative recruitment that we talk about. And there is more people and more people starting becoming part of that. And eventually, I think that the industry will shrink. There'll be less people providing service, but these people will be professionals recognized, possibly with a governing body or a legislative authority that controls that. That will be, in my opinion, it's coming because technology is competing with this sort of CV supply service, and it won't last long.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And you know, the technology is just about data, but data is missing something. And data is missing the interpretation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And data is missing the not the intelligence, the persistence. I'll give you an example. You know, my record is 51. It took 51 phone calls and 50 voicemails to finally get a CEO that I've been going after as a potential candidate to take my call. And this is why I got, you know, this is one of the stories where I get dinged or nicknamed the rogue recruiter. I have been hunting the CEO of Motorola Data, and the first 50 messages I left, none of them got answered. And we were in the process of finalizing this CEO hire with a candidate. We were in, you know, counteroffer. And I finally found out through a friend that this guy was taken off to Germany. And so I phoned, this is back in, 95, 96. I phoned the airport in Munich and phoned all of the different car rental places to find out which one had because I pretended to be the guy, had my reservation. About 7 of them, the last guy was the one that had my reservation. I said, listen, has it got a car phone? Because I need a car phone. Yes, it's got a car phone. I said, what's the number? I got to give it to my wife. So he gives me the number. So I know when he's taking off. I know when he's landing. I watched on the thing, and I waited about 40 minutes until he got in his car. And I phoned him and I said, Glenn, David Perry, you got a minute? He said, well, I'm on the fucking Autobahn. Yeah, what do you want? So we had this conversation, and he finally agreed. He says, okay, I'll meet your client, but he's got to fly to Vancouver. So I called my client and I said, hey, good news. You know that guy I've been chasing for the last 3 months? I said, yeah. I said, I finally talked to him. He said, listen, we're making an offer. So I know that, but I think this guy's better. I said, is Marilyn standing? His secretary's name is Marilyn. I said, is Marilyn standing in your office doorway? And she said, yeah. I said, okay, go talk to her because you got to be in Vancouver 2 days from now for the interview because you got to fly to Vancouver to meet this guy. And he goes, you got to be. And I said, no, I'm not kidding. I said, if I'm wrong, I'll pay for the ticket, the whole 9 yards. You'll get to tell the story for the rest of your life and make fun of me. You know how much you enjoy that. Anyway, he went. We loved the guy. We hired him. And about 14 months later, we had a very successful IPO. That's how I got the nickname for Rogue Recruiter because, you know, when we take what a lot of recruiters don't understand is that, I think anyway, is that when a client says, we trust you, that you're going to bring us the best, it's not, oh, we did the best that we've had in the filing cabinet. We don't have any files. Yeah. You know, we had in a filing cabinet, or we did a file search, or I called around for a couple of days. No, man. We do original research. We come up with a targeted list. And for lack of a better term, and not to get anybody knickers in a knot, we hunt people. You know, and in one phone call, I know whether I've spent 5 minutes, and I can do it in 5 minutes, and it's a good 5 minutes of my time, or this isn't the guy or the gal. It's just gotten that fast. But we hunt people, and when we can't find people, we leave voicemails. And when they don't get returned, I just assume it's my, my lack of verbal acuity to make the right message, and I spin it, and I pitch it again, and I pitch it again, and I pitch it again. And you got to be able to do that. And you know, the latest psychology for the last 3 to 5 years is forget about the pitch, ask the questions. So my voicemails are more along the lines of, you know, questions that I leave and expect an answer. And they're probing questions because it's like baseball cards, right? I don't know if they have soccer cards in England, but baseball cards, you know what the guy's done?
Yeah.
Because all the stats are on the back, right?
Yeah.
Well, nowadays, before you ever call somebody, you can look on LinkedIn and almost everybody's there. You
Yeah.
can go to Dow Jones and a bunch of others to get that, but everybody's on LinkedIn. So you can look up the stats and go, yeah, this would be logical for this guy or gal or not. And if it's not, you don't call them. If it is, when you're on the phone, if you don't get them, it's what's the voicemail message you're going to leave that's going to get them to call you back. And the reason I say this is because when a client hires you, you owe them your best effort, like your dying last breath, best effort to get the person that they need. Otherwise, they can do it themselves, and they will. And more of them, as we talked about, are hiring internal recruiters and or trying to do it themselves. And for the middle of the road, non-hard to find technical recruiter or technical executive, I think it's a great idea. And frankly, I've set up HR departments. I'm doing a CHRO now. And the CEO said to Anita and I a couple of months ago, he said, why are you doing this search? Because, we're not going to need you if we hire the CHRO. I said, okay, you're 500 people now. You're going to be at 1,500. Maybe you won't need us. But maybe you'll just be so goddamn busy hiring the other 1,000 people that the tough stuff, you just turn back over to us as you have for the last 12 years. I said, that's the longer game. But frankly, let me just get you what you need now, and we can talk about what our future is with you later. And the fact is, if we do a good job, we will continue to get their work, and they'll continue to recommend us. Most of our business is through word of mouth and referrals. I think the last nine executive searches have come from referrals from people that have met me or have worked with us. That's the way it is. And that's the zone that recruiters now have to get into.
I think the lesson I'll take from that, David, is you've got to be persistent. You've got to be relentless. And the piece I like there is also, what's the question I'm going to leave on the voicemail message? Because so often you do go through to voicemail message that's going to inspire the candidate or intrigue them enough to actually give you a call back and give you the answer.
I'm curious, by the way, David, if it's not too much to put you on the spot, can you think of a couple of examples?
Oh, I can do one that I do all the time, especially in Ottawa. I will leave a voicemail message saying, I was talking to your husband, and I got a quick question for you. Or I was talking to your friend Bill, and I got a quick question for you. Or you wouldn't believe what your wife said about you last weekend. And these are real examples, right? Right off the top of my head. These are real examples. Really? And nobody doesn't call back for that, right?
What did my wife say about me, by the way?
What? that he was a nice guy. But I've left. This is a simple one to use, and I recommend this to people all the time. I'm doing a CIO role, but this could be for a sales role or a product manager role or anything. And I'll phone up and say, "Hi, my name is," and a friend of yours or someone I met told me that I should call you about this opportunity. I don't think you're qualified, but I'm doing this to be polite. So I'd like to talk to you about, tell them the title. You don't need to call me back because I don't think you're qualified. But here's my number just in case. I've never had anybody not call me back. The first thing they'll say is, who told you, who gave you my name? And I'll go, you can play that game or not. I'm not going to tell you. So you want to hang up now? That's fine. Okay, not hanging up. Now, apparently I got your attention, but they honestly thought you, weren't qualified. So why are you qualified for this job? And then they'll tell me, and I go, well, why are you interested other than the fact that I'm telling you that I'm not going to present you? And then they'll dig in and tell you.
Yeah.
You're writing stuff down.
Right.
Is it unethical? No, it's not. It's just creative.
Does the job.
And I had a friend of mine's son who I had to train to be not a recruiter, but a salesman. Nice kid. This goes back 20, 25 years. So I had a good conversation with him, gave him a couple of exercises, and then my assignment for the next 4 weeks was I wanted him in the bars, actually pubs here in Ottawa, every Thursday and Friday night. And his objective was to get the name and phone number of the prettiest girl in the pub.
Okay.
So that's sales, right?
We've all played this game, but let's see what your approach is.
And his mother called me about week 3, and she's livid. And I called I called his father because he was a client. He's a CEO I actually hired into a place, and he asked me to train this kid up. And I said, can you please go back and explain to Sue that at no time did I ever tell him he had to bring her home. I said he just needed the number. That's all I asked him to do. So what he did beyond that is just good on him. And he's a New Zealander. He laughed, but that's what it's all about. You just need to be able to get someone's attention, honestly, ethically, get their attention to start the conversation. That's the hardest part, right? Starting the conversation.
Yeah.
I recruited the CEO of Oracle, Canada, out of Oracle, to become president of a software company. And I phoned him up and I said, he's a friend of mine now. I said, Rick, my name's David Perry, and I'm just phoning to apologize. He says, apologize for what? I don't even fucking know you. And I said, well, that's what I'm apologizing for. I said, I've been a recruiter now for the last 23 years, have all these great opportunities, and I never talked to you because until today, I never had anything to talk to you about. And for that, I'm apologetic. He laughed. Yes, I recruited him. Yes, he moved to my client.
Yeah, very good. Very good. David, listen, you've been very generous with your time. We really appreciate your time. Plamen, appreciate your time as too. It's been fascinating to listen to your stories.